Avowed is a first-person RPG developed by Obsidian Entertainment and published by Xbox Game Studios. Avowed is set in a fantasy world that is created for the Pillars of Eternity series. Players play as the envoy of Eora to investigate rumours of a plague that is spreading throughout the living lands, a mysterious island full of mystery, secrets and dangers. I played the game for about 15 hours and I'm in no way saying the game isn't good, but after this time I just don't think it's for me. When making a review, I break the game down into sections: gameplay, graphics and performance, sound and story. Gameplay. Here's where my issues begin. The core mechanics are stuck in the 2000s. But in the 2000s we had these little things called manuals. It was something you got when purchasing a game which would teach you how the main mechanics of the game worked, if it doesn't do so whilst you're playing. Avowed doesn't have either of these. It doesn't teach you how to play the game in the game, and it also doesn't come with a manual. In the end, I was forced to go to YouTube and had to watch one of those 10 things you wish you knew sooner. Shout out to Legacy Gaming, by the way. Here are a couple of examples. Avowed's ability system revolves around a radial menu and a quick menu, but again the game doesn't teach you how to move things between the two. I get that people like having these options when building your character, but for me it makes the game feel slow and lethargic. My character build was a wizard class. I'm not interested in having to upgrade my grimoire, every spell in the grimoire, and then every upgrade for my wand, which is actually my secondary weapon, and it's like this for every system in the game. The difficulty system has nothing to do with leveling your character either. Scaling doesn't exist in this game, which is something I actually quite like. If you want to buff out your character as much as you possibly can, you should be able to do so and reap the benefits later. However, if you happen to come up against an enemy with a greater power level than you, it isn't represented in the way that you think. It's represented in a skull next to or above their health bar. One skull shouldn't be too hard to take out. 2 skull enemies are harder but should be okay as long as they aren't in a group. And 3 skull enemies should be approached with caution. They are beatable, but the amount of consumables it may take to actually beat them may not be worth the cost, and again, the game doesn't teach you this. I haven't played an RPG like this since Morrowind of the original Xbox, but the gameplay and its mechanics do feel like they've been dropped straight from Morrowind into Avowed. That game came out 23 years ago, and the plus side of that game is it came with a manual to teach you the game's mechanics. Graphics and performance. This is where the game shines. Visually, the game is stunning. It's one of the best arguments for Unreal Engine 5 on console. I played on the Series X, so it's forced to 30 frames per second, but it's well paced. I didn't come across any stutters or drops. There were a few moments though where I noticed texture pop in. Nothing more that could pull me out of the immersion. There were 2 more modes on there. There was a performance mode that struggles to hold 60, and if you have a variable refresh rate compatible screen, you can play the game at 40 frames, but from what I understand, there are quite heavy drops in populated areas. One other thing though is I don't understand why you give us a character creation which allows you to make this amazing character which just looks insane, but then the character models in the game are so bland. Like, Obsidian, why? Just have some fun with your characters. Games are supposed to be fun. They don't always have to be serious. Just go nuts. I really like the world that Obsidian created. I've never had an issue playing a game at 30s as long as the world design and atmosphere and frame pacing is fine to keep me immersed in the game. Red Dead 2 did it, Horizon Zero Dawn did it. There shouldn't be an issue here in this day and age. Sound. This is nothing to write home about for me. The voice acting was bland. All characters almost have this generic English accent of some sort. The Amawa, for example, speak with a simple American accent. There are subaquatic beings that, when reading the lore, have this distinct sub-races, so why do they talk like everyone else? One thing I did like though is the game uses audio cues to draw your attention to collectibles rather than using the minimap. I really like this approach from Obsidian. Story. The story of Avowed takes place in the world of Eora, specifically in the Living Lands, a region known for its harsh environments and diverse inhabitants. The game's narrative revolves around you, the envoy of Eora, sent to investigate rumours of a plague that is spreading throughout the Living Lands, who becomes entangled in a larger conflict involving political intrigue, ancient powers and the fate of the world. Sounds great, right? However, the pacing is off. When entering a conversation with any character, it takes 5 or more minutes, and that's fine if that's what you're into and you need to know every single piece of lore. But to me, it broke up gameplay and story just a little bit too much. To be able to level up your character, you need to do side missions, which is expected in an RPG, but when every mission has 5 to 10 minutes of dialogue with multiple answers for every single sentence, honestly, it's just draining. An example of this is one of the side missions you're asked to smuggle out a couple from Paradise. When starting the mission, you speak to the lady in the town centre, and she asks you to collect a herb for the man's blindness and to get their papers for travel. Once you complete those tasks, you then go to the couple to further the mission, to which they then instruct you to go ahead and do those tasks. You've already done them, and this is poor writing. It's almost like they didn't decide whether you should have started. So the poor writing for me is they couldn't decide which one they wanted you to do, so they just put both in. It just didn't make sense. My verdict. Avowed is a game I really had high hopes for when looking at it originally. I've never played Skyrim, so this seemed like a good Skyrim light to get into. And I can understand why a lot of people like it, because these are games that people really have come to know and love. It's really close to a Bethesda style RPG, like I said, Skyrim. But for me, the visuals, although are great, aren't enough to save the progression system, gameplay, poor pacing. It really did frustrate me that the game almost expects you to know these mechanics before playing it. And like I said, I'm 15 hours in, and it's not getting better for me. I haven't got the time, or I'm not willing to put in the effort. I'm not sure which one it is, but either way, the game has drugged me down enough to not want to play it anymore. Now, I'm not saying that that's not for you, and you may still enjoy it, and I understand that. For me personally, I'm at my wit's end, so this is where I'm going to end. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Take care.